Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today we'll be taking a look at a Live in the Line book, Matt Battaglia's House on Fire. I've been eagerly awaiting this. Normally I get these things before they come out so I can do a preview and you can all order it. But for some reason this got lost in the mail or something. So I finally grabbed my copy of House on Fire when we were at Mocha Fest. It was really, really nice to get to hang out with a bunch of Living the Line people. Sean, Eric Creek, and then Matt Battaglia. We were all sitting at the table, sketching, signing, selling books and stuff. This book means a lot to me. When I first read it, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good book. But since reading like Matt's, this is a book that I watched develop from Matt's like initial pitch to through his thumbnails to the final, the inks, and then putting the second layer of tone, and just kind of watched it all happen. And I liked the book at first. I thought it was a good book, but after Tori got long COVID, this book really, really hit home for me in a different way. And I saw, I always knew Matt was addressing kind of his fears about the pandemic, but I guess when that became more personal to me, I really got the weight of how important this book is and how important this book, I think the regard for this book should be, because it's dealing with the emotional consequences that we're all struggling with. I'm sure almost everyone has someone in their life that is impacted or died or has long COVID or had to struggle with it. And this is a book that's about the lengths that someone would go to help someone that they love. And I don't want to give away too much more than that, but rereading it and seeing it in physical form, seeing it in print, these sequences here with this character. I don't know that we even got a name, but this main character, and his wife is sick, and so he's going to go through this kind of like post-apocalyptic, not post-apocalyptic, but post-pandemic kind of dystopia landscape to get her the help that she needs. And the lengths that he'll go to get her the help that she needs, and the impact that has on both of them emotionally is the core of the story. And after going through this and really struggling to get Tori medical help, seeing sequences like this it's just really heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, and what the character goes through, it's just really touching to me. So I really, I say over and over, I think this is one of the most emotionally important books, and I really mean that, because it's not just emotionally important to me, but it's something that's going to speak on a wide range of people dealing with the wide range of circumstances. So anyways, you can get a little sense of the world building here. Also, I'm going to, once I'm done reviewing the book, what I'm going to do is switch over to scans of a page from here, and then scans of the Darwin Cook Richard Parker collections from IDW, because the way Sean and Matt approach this two-tone with the wash versus how Darwin Cook and then how IDW approached it is very different, and I want to get a good scan and show you all the kind of difference, because one of the things I'm always doing on here is hyping Sean, because what he does with our artwork, those of us who work with Living the Line, is so considerate. And like I know with Matt, they spent some time planning what's the best way to approach this for best reproduction. And that's part of why, not only is Sean my friend, but he's someone I really, really trust as my publisher and as artist. So I think this is will be a good example of a different kind of problem that he solved, besides the little teeny tiny lines that I challenged him with. But here you get this guy's been living out of the city. To get into the city, you need to have a passport, a med card, or a work ID. So that's kind of this idea that we're always, like when we went to Mocha to go to the panels, I was supposed to have proof of my vaccinations. I didn't. I had my card, but they didn't ask for it. But we still live in a world where there's certain places you can't get into unless you play along with this mass vaccination, which I've done, but obviously I'm more skeptical about after what happened to Tori from being vaccinated as well. And then here, I know this is one of the sequences that really sold Sean on the book, and looking through it again, I see the impact of it, where just the threatening posture of someone putting like a temperature thing to your forehead. Initially, it looks like a gun, and just living in a world where you're constantly put in the place of a position that's normally a threatening posture, and the psychic impact of that. I think there's a lot of between the lines stuff. It seems like a breezy reading through the book, but there's a lot of kind of just, one thing like that you can extrapolate out into a whole set of psychological principles of living in a world like this and what might happen. This is the image I'm going to scan because it's got a lot of like nice black splatter, some nice dry brush. I'll scan this whole page. Some dry brush in the rendering in the black, and then also a lot of dry brush and variety in the wash, and the way Sean captured all that's really, really, really beautiful. So we'll take a close-up look at that. Here's another page where you can just get a sense of like Matt's power as an artist. He's kind of got this, it's like Paul Pope, but even more energetic. Like I think Paul Pope has even a little bit more, I don't want to say control, but a little bit slower with his mark making. Matt really, really takes the energy, and watching him draw at Mocha was just, astonishing. And then some of these big compositions and pages he gets, and the way he's using the white and doing like a dry brush up here, I think just is absolutely gorgeous imagery. His composition here with the shoes, his sense of place and atmosphere is really, really great. And then also, like, I think just this last image here, I don't think we're giving anything away, but this last image here is one that will be worth taking a look at in a scan, because there's just a lot of stuff going on in the black and white going over top of the dry brush, that when you see what Matt did, how they did it, and how they got scanned and put together by Sean, and the results in production versus the results that you get in the IDW stuff, I think will be really educational, hopefully eye-opening. One of those things where we should all start learning what we should be demanding in terms of how our art should be treated as artists, and how we should be expecting our art to be given to us as consumers. So anyways, we'll take a look at that right now, but I will say, this is, I'll reiterate the idea that this is an extremely emotionally resonant book that speaks to not only like the external climate of our time, but the internal struggles of our time. And it's a really, really powerful work. And we're, just so happy to have Matt as a friend, and someone else that's in the Living the Line family with me. Sean, you just have absolute great taste in books. Like he knows what to do. Living the Line hasn't done a bad book yet, so please go get yourself a copy of this, and that's the best way to support what we do here on the channel. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the scans now. Okay, so I've got scans from the IDW Martini edition of Darwin Cooke's Parker, so a really, really big book, versus Matt's book, which is House of Fire, which is a fairly small book. And I just wanted to take a look at the difference between the two approaches that IDW and then Sean took with Living the Line. So here's a scan of a page in Darwin Cooke's book. And some of this, it could have been forced on IDW, by the way. Cooke made the art, honestly. But some of it just could have been handled differently as well. Here you can see it's a page in the Parker book that obviously has some nice dry brush work on it, both in the black and white and in the tones. So that would make a really good comparison for us. I'm going to zoom in here on this face, and we've got this really nice dry brush area, but we've also got some really like crisp brush lines. And when you zoom in, these are scans that I made at 1200 DPI so we could really see. When you zoom in on something that's even just like a single line, you'll see that line work is being reproduced as a halftone. So you can see that there's a fuzziness to it when you look at the book. The line work doesn't seem very crisp, and that even applies, this page doesn't have any lettering on it, but that applies to lettering as well. So there's a lot of instances throughout the book where things don't feel as sharp as they could, and especially when you get down, well, two places. One is when you're looking at these lines by themselves, the edges are just a little fuzzy. And then two, in the dry brush work, you really lose a lot of the detail of how the pen interacted with the paper, because that's being replaced by the halftone dots. That also applies to, their halftoning to get this color. And it does look like they broke it into, two plates. There's a spot color, like this is going on very flat. They're not reproducing that color through, a CMYK process. So that's cool. They've somehow separated those out. So that makes me wonder then if these actually were produced, like the wash and the line art were produced on the same piece of paper or whether they were produced separately. If they were produced on the same piece of paper, it definitely gives IDW a harder job in reproduction to isolate those two things because they can't just treat it as a pure CMYK job. Maybe what they did is they did it black and this color. It does look like on some of these black areas that the green is underneath it anyways. So maybe they just did a job where they shot it all in the green and then they shot it just with the green taken out with the filter. I'm not sure, but you can see the loss of fidelity in the dry brush areas especially, and just kind of an overall fuzziness to it when you're reading it. The book itself is beautifully bound. It looks amazing. The nice art paper, the creamy paper they have it on. That's all real beautiful. But I definitely noticed it as soon as I picked it up that it's funky. And it also, this may be something that Cook wants, but it also means that there's areas like this that maybe, there's just some variations in the blackness of the ink that the artist didn't want to reproduce. They wanted it to be a solid black that have been captured. Like here we see some of that as well. So Sean and Matt took an approach that's different, or at least the way Sean handled it's different. I'm not sure, like I said, whether Darwin Cook worked on vellum or on the same piece of paper. But what Sean had Matt do is make sure that he did his washes on a separate piece of paper so that the two pieces of art could be handled differently and then compiled in Photoshop. So you can look at here. This is again a 1200 dpi scan, so we're getting the same amount of zoom, and you can see that the lines preserve perfect fidelity. The scan's a little fuzzy just because my scanner's not got the best depth of field, but even with the slightly fuzzy scanner, you can see that there's no halftoning along the edge, and so the lines remain perfectly crisp. And that applies all the way into all of the splatters that Matt does and all of the wild line work, the lettering. There's no fuzziness on anything. So it's basically sitting on the page as it sits on Matt's page as the artist. And then this second tone layer was done separately so it could be scanned in and then treated with the halftone that needs to be done. Sean could have done a diffusion dither on it as well, but it looks like he went with a halftone, and that captured all of the variation in value of the the washes there, but with the ability to also turn the black and white work to pure black and white. When you've got a dry brush moment, you can preserve all of the texture of the dry brush without it being busted up into any kind of pixels. So the dry brush is like way more fidelity to the original piece of art, and you don't have to print the two colors like one over top of each other, so you don't have like any red happening over here in the areas that should be just black. So there's no like color fuzz to it either. It's just where the black goes over the red, you get that just a bit. But Sean can also trap that so that there's not like a more reddish tone. You see there's no like reddish tone to the black here. So that's all like stuff that makes a real big difference once you see it to how the books look. And again, zooming in on this dry brush area, my scanner's a little fuzzy, but you can see that there's none of that pixelation on the edges that you get in that Darwin Cook piece. And then actually let's go ahead and open that back up. So again, going into the dry brush areas here, and you'll see how they're turning into a gray versus here. Well, this will be really good. Versus this amazing page by Matt, where at the 100% at the 1200 dpi, actually all of the textural stuff. So again, we'll just flip back and forth between, these are same resolution of scan, same kind of size on the screen, 100%, and the fidelity to the dry brush is just so much different. And also, again, you can see that the ink washes are able to have their full variety. I know in talking to Sean, actually, I think the printer pushed the inks a little too much, so the color came out darker, and some of the variety actually disappeared just from the ink being pushed too heavy. But those are things that are kind of out of your control. But we got evidence of Matt's fingerprint here, preserved pretty perfectly. And again, my scanner's got not a bad depth of field, so there's some blur on the scan, but the fidelity there. And you can see the trapping that's a little offset so that the red's not underneath the black. Those things are all preserved with so much greater fidelity in the process that Matt and Sean used. The other area I wanted to get in on, there's another fingerprint, is there's this really awesome like reductive drawing here with the black and white, and just seeing how much texture Sean was able to preserve in that area. It's really impressive, even getting some of the rays of the ink in there. But then also being able to convert it to pure black. Any variations you're seeing in the black here is just because at high resolution my scanner is capturing the light reflecting off of the paper, so that's just the paper being reflected. But the ink goes on nice and black. There's none of those washy variations in the black, but you still preserve all of the kind of tonal and textural variations that you get, and even these little bits of red, you know, coming in here from the splatter and the dry brush. You can see that the dry brush isn't preserved as cleanly on the tones because they're put into a halftone, and so that difference also, you know, is visible in the book and separates the two layers a little bit differently. So I just thought we'd give you a look at those two things, because I know, like with the Parker book, when I do a review of it, I'm going to complain about, you know, what a crap job IDW has done. And again, that may have been Darwin Cook just doing it all on the same board. But I know people really value these books, and I kind of feel like I have to give a defense of why, you know, when I'm saying I don't think IDW handled this like the artist edition that they're claiming it is. It doesn't have that kind of fidelity to the original that Sean would be able to get out of a piece of work. And now that I'm used to seeing this and know the terms for it, it's very apparent to me when I'm reading books. I know at this it kind of looks all fine, but my eyes have tuned into it enough now that when I'm holding the book, I can see these things that I'm describing. That's why I knew to scan them. But areas like this where this could have been all blacked out and the silhouette could have been stronger. Again, maybe Cook wanted it this way. And then just the fidelity to the dry brush and all that stuff. So hopefully that's kind of educational. I love the Darwin Cook Parker books. The package itself and the paper and the binding and all that's nice. But IDW always does this thing where they halftone everything, and it just kind of makes their books look kind of funky. So it's something I expect versus, you know, what we see here, which is really quite beautiful capture of what was going on the original page. So just more, you know, hype video for why beyond Sean being a great guy and my friend, you know, why I work with him as a publisher, and why he loves working with artists like Matt that are very textural, because it's just like new challenges, new things to try out. And what more could you want from a publisher than someone who doesn't want to just pump out a book and get the money, but they want to preserve it as a piece of art. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this. I would, you know, encourage you to be doing this with your books. Scan them and take a look at how they're made. Like you'll learn a lot as an artist. And then if you haven't been watching a lot of our videos, our tech videos, you can go back if you want to know how to do this kind of stuff, and go back and see what Sean's processes are and how he's been preparing things for print to get this kind of fidelity in the print. You know, even the fact that all these splatters remain perfectly circular at this size rather than turning into little like boxes or something is a real big deal, for an artist that's doing this kind of work, and Sean's really doing great work in that area. So hopefully that's educational. If you want more education, go check out the paper to pixel tech videos that Sean's been putting up, and then you can learn how to prepare your own art like this so your work can reproduce as well as possible. All right, thanks for following along, guys. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.
House on Fire by Matt Battaglia is a just gorgeous book where Matt's kind of making an emotional response to the years of COVID and wrapping that into a sci-fi dystopian future that really the sci-fi dystopian's backgrounded, and you're focused on the emotional journey of two characters in a really beautiful way. And then that's enhanced by Matt's like really awesome, loose, kind of Paul Popish dry brush work. And then Sean and Matt have worked to get this second kind of orange spot color in there that's going to look really, really beautiful, and has allowed Matt to use his dry brush technique to add tone to the thing too. So with Sean's production technique, this is going to be a gorgeous book with a lot of heart.